The dust on the roads of Nazareth smells of drought and impending doom. Mary stared at her palms, watching them tremble. There was no weight in her womb yet, but her thoughts were already heavy as lead. One single word, and her world, built on rigid laws and parental expectations, would crumble into ash. She knew the law. In these lands, the law does not argue, it punishes. There are no excuses. A woman who brings a stranger's fruit into her husband's house is a shame that can only be washed away with blood. She could almost hear it, the dry, hollow thud of stones striking flesh. She saw the faces of her neighbors, the very same people who smiled at her by the well yesterday, but tomorrow would be the first to reach for the jagged rocks, to cleanse the city of its stain. The dust of Nazareth was her only reality. Mary's life was a rut carved into dry earth, an endless circle where every morning began at the well. The heavy bucket pulled at her shoulder, cold water splashed against the stones, and the crowd hummed around her, familiar faces, masking an icy indifference. In this world, no one expected greatness from her. They expected only silence and obedience. Her future was mapped out. The betrothal to Joseph happened without fanfare. Joseph was a man of order, a carpenter who built their future just as he assembled furniture in his workshop, plank to plank, nail to nail. In his world, there was no room for fantasy, only solid wood and clear rules. That day, she was carrying water, just as she had hundreds of times before. But suddenly, the air turned thick and motionless, like the split second before a lightning strike. Her footsteps stopped of their own accord. Mary lifted her head, feeling it in her skin. She was no longer alone. The light did not blind her, yet it was impossible to look away. The voice sounded so close, as if someone stood right behind her, whispering directly into her heart. It called her by name. Mary recoiled. Her fingers gripped the edge of her coarse cloak until her knuckles turned white. Her breath hitched. The first thing she felt was not awe, but a primal terror. When the voice declared she would bear a son, Mary exhaled sharply. She knew the laws. She knew the laws. She knew the laws. She knew exactly what a crowd looked like when they held stones in their hands. She asked the only question that mattered, but the answer brought no relief. The answer stripped her of everything. She had a choice. She could have stepped back. She could have closed her eyes and pretended it was just a heat stroke. She could have returned to the cozy rut of her predictable life. Instead, Mary slowly uncurled her fingers. The heavy bucket lowered to the ground. The water spilled into the dust and vanished instantly, soaked up by the parched soil. Along with that water, her old life drained away. There was no turning back. She drew herself up, staring into the dazzling unknown, and said, yes, not because she was ready for greatness, but because she realized, when God speaks to you, safe options no longer exist. Joseph did not sleep. He sat in the thick darkness of an unfinished house, a place smelling of fresh wood shavings and unfulfilled dreams. In his hands, he gripped a knotted measuring rope, the symbol of his order, his honest, measured life. The shadow from the oil lamp flickered on the wall, pacing restlessly as if it could not find its place, much like his thoughts. Around him, everything was right. The planks lay straight. The tools, chisels, saws, hammers, rested in their proper places. Everything in this house spoke of reliability, except for one piece of news that had pulled the ground from beneath his feet and left him unable to breathe. Mary was pregnant, and the child was not his. The law was simple and harsh, like the strike of an axe. The law was on his side. The neighbors, the elders, all of Nazareth, they would have understood him. They would have applauded his righteous anger. He could have walked away, kept his good name, and left the shame behind a closed door. Joseph squeezed the rope so hard the knots dug into his palms. He stood up, took a step toward the exit, and froze. In that silence, he realized with terrifying clarity, if he left now, she would be left alone to face the stones. His departure would be her death sentence. That night, he lay down directly on the cold floor, not even removing his cloak. Sleep came heavy and gray, like a tombstone. In his dream, he stood once more on that threshold, turning his back, retreating into the safe shadow of his righteousness. And that was when the voice found him. It did not thunder from the heavens. It sounded as if it had always been inside that room. The voice called him by name. Joseph shuddered. There was no command than that sound, only knowing. "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid." When he opened his eyes, the gray dawn was just touching the rooftops of Nazareth. Nothing had become easier. The fear had not vanished. It had simply become a part of him. The choice stood before him, naked and honest. If he leaves, he saves himself. If he stays, he surrenders his life, his name, and his honor to something he can never prove, to another soul on earth. Joseph rose slowly. He carefully coiled the measuring rope and placed it on the workbench. In that moment, he ceased to be just a carpenter. He became a shield. He stayed. Caesar Augustus's decree did not ask for permission. It was faceless and merciless, like the Roman Empire itself. Everyone had to return to the city of their lineage. And for Joseph, the law of Rome proved stronger than human circumstance. They departed at dawn, while Nazareth still slept, two outcasts, disappearing into the dust, and the unknown, the Rachel. The road knew no mercy. Dust choked their lungs, and the sharp rocks of the Judean hills cut through their thin sandals. By day, the sun burned away their strength. By night, the wind struck with an icy edge. Mary walked with heavy, straining steps. Every movement was an echo of pain. Every breath was a battle. Joseph never let go of her hand. He was no longer just a carpenter. He was a shield, trying to cover a fragile flame of life that neither sword nor law could protect. When Bethlehem finally appeared on the horizon, it did not greet them with warmth. The city was like a disturbed anthill. The streets hummed with noise. People jostled. Doors slammed shut. Faster than Joseph could lift his hand to knock, he knocked again and again. His voice broke into a rasp. He did not ask for honors. He asked only for a patch of floor and a moment of silence, for Mary's time was running out. But the world was too busy with itself. In response, he heard only a dry, "No room," not out of malice, but out of indifference. The world simply did not notice God knocking at its door. Mary stood in the shadows of the houses, pale as a shroud. Her eyes were wide with anxiety, her fingers clenching her cloak with every new contraction. When the last door shut with a hollow thud, Joseph felt fear. A real sticky fear climb up his throat. There was nowhere to go back to. Going forward was impossible. Only then did one man, whose gaze happened to linger on their despair, gesture toward rocky slope. There, in the shadows, loomed the entrance to a cave, a stable for livestock, a dark place, smelling of manure and damp earth. It was not a palace. It was not even a room. It was a pen for animals. And that is exactly where they went, because heaven chose to descend to earth not through a grand entrance, but through the deepest silence of human humility. The stable met them with cramped shadows and the scent of damp straw. Rough stone walls creakily soaked up the last of the day's warmth, giving back nothing but a biting chill. Outside, just beyond those thin walls, life moved on. Voices buzzed, chariots creaked, and people argued over prices and politics. The world could not care less about what was happening just a few feet away, behind a dirty curtain made from an old cloak. Joseph feverishly kicked at the straw, trying to create some semblance of a bed. All his skill as a carpenter, all his ability to build and protect, had been reduced to this: hanging his cloak over the entrance to block a freezing draft. Mary sank to the ground. Her fingers dug into the cold stone of the wall until they ached. The pain came in waves, heavy, rhythmic, and inevitable. In this cave, there were no midwives, no clean linens, no whispered words of comfort. There was only the steady chewing of livestock, the thick darkness, and an effort. He stopped. When the child was born, the world did not tremble, the sky did not crack with thunder, and the stars did not fall from their places. There was only a short, shallow breath and the movement of a tiny body. Mary pressed him to herself so tightly, as if trying to shield him from all the world's injustice. She wrapped him in strips of cloth and gently laid him in a manger, a crude wooden trough where, only moments ago, donkeys had eaten. No other place could be found for the one to whom the universe belongs. Joseph stood nearby, not daring to move. He looked at the small face and felt a deafening dissonance. How could the city keep sleeping? How could people laugh and haggle behind that wall when here, amidst manure and straw, eternity had entered the narrow stream of human life? It all happened quietly, no witnesses, no applause, and yet, hidden within that very silence, was a power that no Caesar could ever crush. It happened unnoticed, and that is exactly why it is forever. Far beyond the borders of Bethlehem, where the roads ended and the wild wilderness began, shepherds guarded their flocks. Night here did not forgive carelessness. The darkness felt alive, breathing with cold, hiding the whispers of predators. They sat by a dying fire, huddled in coarse skins, speaking in low voices. The silence was too fragile to break with a shout. Nothing suggested a change was coming. The wind lazily carried the scent of dry grass. The sheep shifted restlessly from foot to foot, and then reality tore open. Light flooded the field so suddenly, so blindingly, that the shepherds leapt up, shielding their faces with their hands. The ground seemed to vanish beneath them. The first thing that came was not joy, but a primal, animal fear. Their hearts hammered in their throats. Their legs trembled. In their world, a light like this meant either death or the presence of one before whom no man can stand. The voice did not come from the clouds, but as if from the very space around them, and the first word was a command: do not be afraid. They were not told of a new Caesar's birth. They were not shown a golden palace. The voice declared that on this night, a great joy was born, and it gave them a sign that could not be mistaken: a baby lying in a manger. God chose as his password not a crown, but a feeding trough for cattle. When the light vanished, the shepherds did not argue. They did not wait for dawn or discuss what they had seen. They abandoned their flocks, their only property, and ran toward the city. Stumbling in the dark, gasping for the cold air, they carried a news within them that burned hotter than any fear. They found Mary and Joseph. And when they saw him, tiny, defenseless, lying where the animal feed was usually kept, wonder pushed out everything else. They spoke breathlessly, interrupting each other, trying to put into words that which had no name. And when they headed back to their flocks, the silence of the night no longer felt threatening. They walked through the sleeping streets, praising God aloud, waking those who had locked their doors. The world was still asleep, dreaming of taxes and trade, but the shepherds already knew this night was the point of no return. They were not the same, and the world could never be the same again. The news of the child grew, crossing the borders of Judea. From the far east, from lands where the sky was better known than the earth, came the Magi. These were men accustomed to reading signs rather than scrolls. All their lives they had watched the movement of the stars, but this star was different. It did not just shine, it beckoned. It moved against the laws of astronomy, leading them through scorched deserts and cities filled with doubt. The Magi understood a king was born, not one who takes power by the sword, but one who is power itself. Their arrival in Jerusalem was a spark in a powder keg. The question of a newborn king made Herod tremble. Herod was a king by right of force, but not by right of truth. His throne sat upon blood, and every rustle of change triggered a fit of icy terror. He smiled at the Magi, spoke softly, almost tenderly, but behind that predator's mask, a decision was already ripening, one that would make the blood run cold. He sent them to Bethlehem, but in his heart there was no room for faith. There was only a hunger to incinerate any threat to his majesty. The Magi continued their journey, and the star, as if rejoicing in their faithfulness, flared up again, bright and near. It stopped over a very ordinary house. Stepping inside, the wise men saw no guards, no silks, no golden thrones. Before them were Mary, Joseph, and the infant, defenseless and quiet. And then the incredible happened. Men before whom rulers bowed fell to their knees. They brought gifts that encoded the entire life path of this child: gold, recognition of his royalty; frankincense, recognition of his divinity; and myrrh, a bitter prophecy of his future suffering and death. The night brought no peace. Warned in a dream, the Magi vanished, taking another road and leaving Herod in a blind rage. A shadow fell over Joseph's house. The voice in his dream was sharp: "Arise and flee." Death had already passed through the gates of Herod's palace and was heading their way. Joseph rose in the middle of the night, lighting no fires. In a rush, huddled in travel clothes, they took the child and vanished into the darkness toward Egypt. Christmas ceased to be a cozy mystery. It became an open challenge. Light had entered the world, and darkness responded the only way it knew how: with violence. Thus began the story of salvation. Through flight, a foreign land, and the quiet cry of a child in the night desert. I did not come to a palace back then. If I had been born on silks, guarded by legions, you would have thought I demanded only your worship. I did not come through force. Thunder and lightning may have made you obey, but they could never make you love. You would have simply been afraid. I came as life itself comes, quietly, vulnerably, without protection. I entered this world through a woman who knew what it meant to face mortal terror. Through a man who stayed by her side when it was 1,000 times easier to walk away. I walked roads where there was no comfort, and I knocked on doors that slammed shut, one after another, right in my face. I was born wherever a place was found for me, on dirty straw, amidst the noise of strangers. The world was too busy with itself to notice a miracle, and since then, very little has changed. You are still in such a hurry. You still search for security in things that crumble into dust. You are still so afraid to lose control over your small, carefully measured lives. You often think, I will let God in when I have my life in order, when I have the strength, when I am righteous and clean. But I come precisely when there is no room. I come when you are afraid, when it hurts, when it feels like you are not heard, are not welcome, and are not understood. When you feel like a stable, cramped, dark, and unworthy. I do not demand perfection from you. I only ask for your trust, the kind of trust Mary had when she whispered, yes, not knowing if she would live to see the dawn. The kind Joseph had when he laid his reputation on the altar of faithfulness. Christmas is not a story from a yellowed book. It is how I enter your life, right now, not through crowded squares, not through pressure, but through the choice you make in the deepest silence of your heart. If you are willing to let me in, not when everything is convenient, but when you are vulnerable, the light will flicker to life once again. And that light will not start with the world around you. It will start with you.